people, welcome to my channel. This is Gina, Psychic PRN, where I focus on mental health education and self-improvement videos. If this is your first time checking me out, thank you so much. If you're a returning listener, thank you and welcome. We're pushing mental health forward. We are making it as an everyday part of our discussion. As I had mentioned, I'm transitioning my channel to focus more on relationships, difficult relationships, toxic relationship, whether it's intimate relationships, family, work relationship, friendships, church relationship, things like that. That sometimes you can have different type of personalities that can provoke the dynamic to get unstable. So today I'm going to talk a little bit on stonewalling and what is stonewalling in a typical toxic or narcissistic relationship, or if you find yourself in a relationship with someone who has that narcissistic or toxic personality type. So like I mentioned, from church, family, work, you can have a sister who can stonewall. You can have an aunt, you can have a pastor, you can have a friend who can practice this thing called stonewalling. So the layman term for stonewalling, it's like silent treatment, right? It's a cruel manipulation of some people who find it as a way to deal with their interactions with other people. It's kind of a form of gaslighting too, to make you doubt yourself, make you feel crazy, make you feel almost like not good enough or less than in their mind. So what are the ways to deal with stonewalling or silent treatment as a way? I know in my culture, there's a lot, especially men, majority of men, a lot of times in relationships, a lot of people don't talk about this, but we use stonewalling as a way to manipulate, to control, to maybe even it's a form of abuse of another partner. This is also very prevalent in churches, leaderships of churches, especially in communities of color or immigrant populations. Leaders can use stonewalling or silent treatment or cold shoulder, so to speak, subtle ways to manipulate members in a way to punish them, make them feel bad, to get them to do what they want them to do. So if you don't have self-esteem, or if you don't have a sense of self, you can easily give into that, because it can make you feel, you can suffer internally. So just pushing the word forward about this, because people just keep quiet and silent about this, but it's very common. So it's what in a research by John Gothmqn, he actually described this phenomenon as the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. So if I'm saying is destructive, it destroys relationships, even destroys families because of this. It's very common in men, like I said, when they feel attacked, especially men in leadership, they use it as a tactic to get the other person to do what they want them to do. So some of the ways that it shows up as stonewalling is the refusal to communicate or form a connection in a relationship. So one of the ways that they refuse to communicate or form a connection with the other person is to use the silent treatment, not talk. If there's an issue, let's say you brought up an issue to discuss, say, hey, listen, I feel like the way you acted the other time, I didn't really appreciate it, and I want to have a discussion about it. And let's find a mutual ground so we can move forward for it and from it and compromise. But the other person will not want to engage, so then we'll distance or stonewall. Well, we start using the silent treatment. Will not answer. So one of the ways is like they will not answer. Like you say, you're talking to them, they will just walk away, literally walk away and not say anything, not answer you back. Or they see you, you try to say maybe hi or something, they might say a subtle hi or okay, so totally different from what their demeanor usually is towards you as a person who's seeking to have that mutuality. So they literally walk away, or they are cold, or act like they didn't see you, or act like they didn't hear you, or something you might say once or twice even, and they might act like they didn't hear you. So they're like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you, because they don't want to deal with the matter at hand, right? So walk away, refuse to answer messages, emails, texts repeatedly. They will just refuse. You can text them, call them, email them. They will refuse to answer you back. So that's the way for them to not engage or not discuss or not want to resolve the matter at hand. It's actually a form of immaturity for people who have not really developed a sense of adult communication, where they can call you and say, hey, listen, I really felt X, Y, and Z about what you did or what you said. So the other person can say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even realize it. Or this is what I meant by it. I didn't mean anything by it or anything, but it's their own insecurities, but they play it out in that sense. So if you don't get help for it, or find knowing that it's not you, it's them. But if it's a close relationship, I can, we've seen over the years as providers, as, counselors, therapists, that people suffer, families suffer from somebody who you had a connection with, and something happens and they withdraw like that. It can easily have people second guessing themselves. So it's unhealthy. It's an unhealthy way to deal in relationship. The other thing too, the last point is they also don't want to take responsibility for what happened or whatever the issue is. They don't want to take their part. They don't want to discuss it. They don't want to own up to it. They don't want to see their part in how the whole thing happened and how to move past it and move forward. And their intention might be to punish you because they feel resentful, or they lack sense of empathy, especially if you're dealing with somebody who's toxic, has toxic tendencies, or who's narcissistic, who has narcissistic presentation. So I just want to make sure nobody on this earth is bad, right? Everybody has their good side, but that's why I say they are not toxic, but their behavior is toxic. They have narcissistic tendencies, but they're not, they're just like, not like, oh, narcissistic, they're awful, they might have their good parts and blah, blah, blah. But that just kind of to clarify that sometimes we have to ask, what happened to that person? Why are they acting that way? Why are they choosing to adopt this way? Maybe growing up, as when they were younger, that's how they saw their family members, their primary caregivers deal. So they also learn that it works. It can work on some people, but on the people who it doesn't work with, can result in clashing, resisting, and the other person might try and maybe, like we call it, reactive abuse or reactive ways to deal with the person who's doing the stonewalling. So if you're talking to someone who's not answering, if you get frustrated enough, you might start be like, maybe you might yell, maybe your voice might go higher and say, what are you doing? Why are you not answering me? Why don't you want to resolve this issue? Da, 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 da. Especially in an intimate relationship, that can also result in, kind of a dynamic that might not be to stable. So a lot of that there, but people don't talk about this stuff, right? It's easy to guilt, to shame other people. So this type of stonewalling, silent treatment dynamic can really lead the other person, who can easily be a victim, into a reactive abuser, because they're reacting. They may be more empathetic. Myself, I've had, whether friendships, friends, I've had pastoral relationships, I've had work relationships, I've had intimate relationships, even my husband, who we've had times where, because a lot of our African men have narcissistic tendencies, they have toxic tendencies, and the woman can easily become what we call reactive abuser, because you're reacting, you're frustrated, you bottle it in so long, you're like, why can't we just compromise? Why can't we talk about this? Why can't we just find a middle ground? So they're on, and then that dynamic can certainly become a whole different, but they're using it as a tactic to punish, to shame, to guilt, to crumble you. So you have to recognize it for what it is, get help for yourself, center yourself, work to move past it. Easier said than that, though. Been there, done that. And not to mention, I've had my uncles, parents who use those tactics, aunties, in-laws who use those kind of tactics, right? Passive aggressive ways to deal with issues, and it's really bad. It's a form of manipulation that's very abusive to the other person. So it can lead to resentment. They don't know why they're stonewalling, because the discussion never got had because the other partner just uses the silent treatment. So it can compromise and break down many relationships, including families, like I mentioned, in-laws, uncles, aunties, grandma, parents, children. Some parents use that for their children. If they feel like their children are not doing what they ask them to do, they use the silence, they will distance themselves, they will withhold. So it's almost like their love for them is conditional. They will withhold affection, they will withhold talking to them, they'll become cold. They will until the child gives into what they want them to do, instead of having this reciprocal, empathetic communication style. I've had pastors who use this type of tactic, silent distance, stonewalling behavior to get congregants to crumble, to do what they say, to shame them. Either you stay or you leave. Should I stay? Should I leave? It's a very difficult place to be. So how do you deal? And one of the things, if it's unsafe, if you recognize that the person using stonewalling as a tactic in a relationship, your best bet is to just set boundaries. Really set boundaries, distance yourself. If you can leave, then you leave, or set the boundaries and have them leave, because you're setting boundaries for yourself, for your mental health, for your safety, for your sense of well-being. So you're not carrying this and ruminating over and over in your head. Like, why did it happen? What happened? Why did it? So if you don't feel safe, if your boundaries are violated, leave. But if they're using as a way to punish you, you recognize it for what it is, and either stay and try to deal with it, find ways to cope, or if not, then leave. Leave the relationship, leave the friendship, give it space, give it space, give the other person that space to deal, and know that you don't tolerate that type of behavior. Whether it's work, maybe you need to start looking for another job, because you don't have a boss who is constantly stonewalling you. You don't know what's going to come next. You don't know. You send emails where other people are sending emails and text messages, and you're not included, or you're not getting answers back, and you see them and they have a cold shoulder on you. You don't want to be around that. So those are the ways to deal. You stay well, leave, and have your peace. But that sacrifice has to be made for your own good. So if you're catching me today, my video today is on stonewalling or what we call the silent treatment, the 4 horsemen of the I can't even say the word. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. That's what I was trying to say. And it's very insidious, very insidious, very insidious. It's a form of abuse and emotional abuse, so to speak. So I'll be putting down all the tips so you can go through. If you have any questions, you know anyone who's used Stonewall, you yourself use Stonewall, this is a time for you to reflect and know that finding ways to deal and communicate will be the best. So you're savoring good relationships and also managing your own, mental health. So people who also use stonewalling also have their struggle. They have their trauma from their past that they're not dealing. So they rather deflect and put that on somebody else. So on this note, I'll catch you on the next video. I know I'm rambling on. Like I said, if you whip it in your mind, you can whip it everywhere else in your life. Until the next video, be good and ciao.